Steampunk tales, they wind and twist through gears and smoke. The world exists, a clockwork heart, a daring flight in the glow of brass. We chase the night.
Wart adjusted his brass-rimmed goggles, the lenses magnifying the intricate dance of cogs and gears that lined his small workshop. Steam hissed from a nearby pipe, a familiar song in the city of Cogsworth. Outside his window, towering buildings of copper and polished wood puffed gentle plumes of white into the perpetually misty sky. Gentlemen in top hats adorned with miniature turbines hurried along the cobbled streets, their Victorian-style coats swishing with a modern, metallic sheen. Ladies clutched parasols that whirred with tiny, elegant mechanisms. Wart, a boy of 10 with a mop of unruly brown hair that always seemed to escape his inventor's cap, loved Cogsworth. More than anything, he loved tinkering. His small hands, often smudged with grease and oil, were nimble and clever. Today, however, a frown creased his usually cheerful face. The annual Festival of Flight was only a week away, and Wart dreamed of soaring above the city in a creation of his own. But his latest design, a contraption with flapping canvas wings powered by a repurposed teapot engine, had just flopped rather ungracefully onto his workshop floor. Oh, botheration and steam sprockets! Wart sighed, nudging the failed flyer with his boot. A little puff of disappointment clouded his thoughts, but then he remembered what his mentor, the kindly old Professor Gearington, always said: "Every misfire is just a signpost pointing to a better idea," and boy, Wart grinned. That thought always made him feel a bit brighter. He wouldn't give up. He'd find a new way. He spent the next 2 days utterly absorbed in his workshop. Gears clicked, springs twanged, and the scent of hot oil and determination filled the air. He sketched new designs in his notebook, his tongue poking out in concentration as he drew complex diagrams of boilers, propellers, and steering rudders. He forgot about lunch, and only the chiming of the Great Cog Clock in the city center reminded him that dinner time was approaching. He was so focused on figuring out the perfect lift mechanism that the world outside faded away. This was what he loved. The challenge, the puzzle, the feeling of his mind clicking into place like a well-oiled machine. On the third day, while scavenging for parts in Cogsworth's sprawling scrap market, a wondrous place piled high with discarded automatons, gleaming brass tubes, and every kind of spring and sprocket imaginable, he bumped into someone. Literally. Springs and screws went flying. "Oh, beg pardon," said a voice as bright and cheerful as a newly polished cog. Wart looked up to see a girl about his age. She wore a practical inventor's tunic over a ruffled skirt, her auburn pigtails escaping from beneath a miniature bowler hat fitted with tiny, blinking lights. A pair of magnificent, multi-lensed goggles were pushed up onto her forehead. "No, my fault entirely," Wart stammered, scrambling to help her pick up the scattered bits. "I'm Wart. I'm Izzy," she replied, her smile wide. "Are you building something for the Festival of Flight too?" Wart's face lit up. "Trying to. My wing flapper was a ground hugger." Izzy giggled. "Mine too. I tried to make a rocket-powered pogo stick. It mostly just singed the grass in my garden." They laughed together, the shared experience of a good try gone wrong instantly creating a bond. "Maybe," Izzy said, her eyes sparkling with an idea, "we could combine our brain power? 2 inventors are better than one, right?" Wart had always worked alone, but Izzy's enthusiasm was infectious. "That sounds like a grand idea," he exclaimed. They spent the rest of the afternoon in Wart's workshop, excitedly sharing sketches and ideas. Izzy was brilliant with lightweight frames and fabric, while Wart was a genius with engines and gears. They decided on a new concept: a small, elegant hot air balloon, but with a steampunk twist. It would have articulated guiding fins, a compact, super-efficient steam boiler, and a basket woven from gleaming copper wire. Working together was a new and exciting experience for Wart. When he got stuck on how to make the burner small yet powerful, Izzy suggested a new type of focused steam nozzle she'd read about. When Izzy couldn't figure out how to make the guiding fins responsive enough, Wart devised a clever system of interlocking gears and levers. They encouraged each other when a design didn't quite work, celebrated small breakthroughs with cheers and imaginary tea from oily mugs, and felt a growing sense of excitement as their creation, which they affectionately named the Cogsworth Comet, began to take shape. A few days later, as they were putting the finishing touches on the Cogsworth Comet, a frantic ringing of bells echoed through the city. Mayor Sprocketson himself, his usually immaculate top hat askew, appeared in the town square, addressing the citizens through a brass megaphone. Citizens of Cogsworth, a terrible misfortune. The regulator on the Great Cog Clock has jammed. If it's not fixed by sundown, the entire city's steam grid will overload. We need someone small and light, with a steady hand, to get up there and release the pressure valve. The Great Cog Clock was the heart of Cogsworth, its rhythmic ticking powering everything. It was also incredibly tall, its face wreathed in steam far above the highest rooftops. No ladder could reach it. Wart and Izzy looked at each other. Their balloon wasn't just for the festival anymore. Could help their whole city. Suddenly, their project felt much bigger, much more important. "Mr. Mayor," Wart called out, his voice surprisingly steady. "We have a flying machine. We can reach the clock." A hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to Wart and Izzy and their gleaming, not quite finished Cogsworth Comet. With a renewed sense of urgency, and with a few helping hands from other inventors in the crowd who admired their ingenuity, they quickly finished the final attachments. Professor Gearington appeared, beaming. "Knew you had it in you, boy. And you too, young Izzy. That's the spirit of Cogsworth." The launch was nerve-wracking. Steam hissed powerfully from the comet's burner, the brightly patched balloon swelling like a magnificent mechanical lung. Wart, equipped with a small toolkit, and Izzy, managing the controls, ascended slowly in the copper wire basket. The city spread out beneath them like an intricate clockwork toy. The wind tugged at them, and for a moment, Wart felt a flutter of fear. But Izzy gave him a reassuring nod, her own goggles reflecting his determined face. He remembered all the failed attempts, all the problems they'd solved together. They could do this. Reaching the giant clock face was like landing on the cheek of a friendly giant. Steam swirled around them. Wart, small and agile, carefully climbed onto the clock's minute hand. He could see the jammed regulator, a large, ornate cog stuck fast. With Izzy calling out encouragement and advice from the basket, Wart carefully oiled, tapped, and gently levered the cog. It was tough work, his muscles straining, but he focused, remembering every lesson Professor Gearington had taught him about delicate mechanisms. With a final, satisfying clunk, the cog sprang free. A cheer went up from the streets below as the Great Cog Clock let out a steady, healthy tick-tock. The descent was triumphant. The mayor, the professor, and all of Cogsworth were there to greet them. Wart and Izzy, though tired and smudged with even more grease, felt a warmth spread through them that had nothing to do with steam. They had faced a challenge, worked together, and helped their entire city. The Festival of Flight took place the next day. Wart and Izzy, now local heroes, proudly flew the Cogsworth Comet. They didn't win any grand prizes for speed or altitude. There were much larger, more powerful machines. But as they soared over the cheering crowds, watching the other fantastical, steam-powered contraptions glide through the sky, Wart knew their achievement was special. They had built more than just a machine. They had built a friendship, discovered a purpose, and made a real difference. That evening, as the last of the steam cleared and the gas lamps of Cogsworth cast a warm glow, Wart sat with Izzy on a rooftop, sharing a bag of candied cogs. "You know," Wart said, looking at the stars, faintly visible now that the Great Cog Clock was working perfectly. "Even if our first designs flopped, I'm glad they did. Otherwise, we might not have built the comet, or fixed the clock, or even met." Izzy smiled. "Every misfire is a signpost, right?" Wart grinned back. He felt happy, truly happy, not just because of what he'd done, but because of who he'd done it with and why it mattered. The future of Cogsworth, and his own future as an inventor, felt bright and full of whirring, wonderful possibilities. And he couldn't wait to see what new adventures and new inventions tomorrow would bring.
Steampunk Tales, they wind and